So this has been talked about. Minister Humphreys, Minister Heather Humphreys has been talking with the acting Minister for Justice in the moment and place for Helen McAtee on a pregnancy. So and again, I do think this would be a good. It's a step in the right direction. Let's put it that way. And I do hope it be brought in. But the Garda Union, the ASTI, and the AGI, sorry, the AGSI, is against it. It's against random testing of Gaudi, on the beach and obviously higher ups too, for drugs, cocaine, heroin, things like that. So testing those systems to see if there's the presence of drugs, more or less what to do with the general public. In other countries they've brought it in they brought it in before, guards getting random checks, every once in a while, every month or every 2 months, getting random checks. Not giving a heads up or anything. It's just done as soon as they walk into the station, it's done. And as we know, we have many cases across this country where Gardaí over the years, have been taking drugs off people who are drug dealers and things like that, and using them for their own use. And obviously that's very disgraceful. Doing one thing and then trying to uphold the law and then doing the other, and then breaking the law and giving it to yourself. And obviously we put trust in the Garda Síochána to get the drugs off the streets, to make sure drugs are no such thing in this country. Do not danger our young people. Do not danger anybody in society. And it'd be very shameful. And as we know, many Gardaí, I'm sure we've seen many videos of Gardaí going into churches, Gardaí going into people's houses, barging into people's houses. And I'm sure half them Gardaí want drugs, to be honest. Totally be honest with you. It could not be the people who barged into the church and that alone. A few guards. I thought it was only 2 at the time. There was a few. So one of them must have been on drugs, because barging in, I don't know how they didn't take that was anyway wrong. I don't know how they didn't stop and say, hang on a second, this is very wrong, why are we doing this? But not even one question, because again, drugs affects your thought and affects your way of thinking. These guards don't think, they just act, and again, they wouldn't act if there was a crime, right, that they act in people that are practicing the faith. Again, one of them must have been on drugs, because you would have thought they would have said to them, saying, hang on a second, this is very wrong, going into a church where people are praying. Again, that didn't come across them, and it didn't look good on them, and again, them girls should be shamed for what they did, barging into a church. And as one TD, Michael Fitzpatrick, I think it was, Common Independent TD, said that was the most, that was the fine line, that was the time when the state crossed the line. That's just putting it straight down. He said, I couldn't put it better myself. When they crossed the line in draconian measures, even though they were draconian before. But yeah, I do support this, and I really do hope Minister Humphreys will get it through. But I will support it. Obviously, will support it because it is a very good use for Tua to have, because we can't have Gardaí upholding the law and breaking the law themselves. We want good civil service, good public servants who are trustworthy, who want to help people, who want to protect people, who want to go in the good part in life and serve the Lord and serve this country to the best of their ability. Now, through no fault of some guards' own, they could be brought at the wrong night. They could be let down the garden path, in other words. But again, there's ways of helping guards out with these problems, and there's ways of dealing with the guards who are leaders of these drug operations, selling it to guards, which is happening around the country, we have to admit. There's Gardaí involved in drug gangs, and they're probably making a big profit out of it. These would be higher ups too. But yeah, we all know this. As one person said, I think it was John Wilson, I think it was. He said the guards are the biggest crooks in the country, the biggest gang in the country. Well, we should see if this gets in. It will look bad on Garda Síochána. So there will be probably 200, 300 a day. Probably could be 300 a week, or 200 a month testing positive for cocaine or drugs or whatever. But I do support this, and I hope they do pass it. Thank you.